Selamat sore, saya Majen Triano Sato sebagai Kepala Tentara Bersama Komunitas Nasional. Hari ini tanggal 21 bulan 5 2025. Hal yang mendesak tentang situasi Papua, sehingga kami akan menyatakan atau menyampaikan sikap sebagai tentara pemesan yang berjuang. Untuk itu saya berikan waktu kepada juru bicara Tentara Pertahanan Komunitas Nasional, Tuan Sebi Sambom.
An urgent appeal for United Nations intervention on armed conflict in Papua by the West Papua National Liberation Army to the United Nations Secretary General and all leaders of United Nations member states throughout the world. A. Background of the armed conflict between the West Papua National Liberation Army troop and the illegal occupation force of the Indonesian military has lasted 64 years, and this armed conflict is the result of the mistaken of the United Nations, the United States of America government, the Royal Dutch government, and also the Indonesian government, which have carried out the forced annexation of the political right of the Papuan nation into Indonesian territory since May 1st, 1963. And as a result of this mistaken, the Papuan indigenous people have long suffered for 64 years, and this suffering has become increasingly critical due to the massive and very brutal Indonesian military operation in the last 5 years. The most recent and real example is that the Indonesian military has carried out a morning attack on the Papuan indigenous resident settlement and has killed more than 14 civilians who are Papuan indigenous residents, and the Indonesian military has illegally occupied Papuan indigenous villages in Intan Jaya region, Papua. Seeing this situation, the West Papua National Liberation Army Central Command headquarters today on Wednesday, May 21st, 2025, issued an appeal to call for United Nations intervention for urgent humanitarian action or humanitarian emergency action in Papua. B. The West Papua National Liberation Army highly respects of international humanitarian law in war and is practicing as well on movement. This is evident from the West Papua National Liberation Army call through the 2017 on West Papua National Liberation Army Declaration in Yambi, Papua, where the TPNPP has announced that civilians who are indigenous Indonesian immigrants must leave the war zones. And we issued this open call because the humanitarian emergency situation in Papua, where indigenous Papuan civilians are no longer safe because pastors, priests, and indigenous Papuan medical personnel are no longer safe, and also many have been killed by the Indonesian military on May 14, 2025, and also church building, school building, and government building that should be safe place for civilians are not longer safe because The civilian buildings have been occupied by the Indonesian military, and the indigenous Papuan population is afraid and has fled to the forest. And also, access to humanitarian aid is closed by the government because the airport and transportation and economic have been controlled by the Indonesian military fully. C. Urgent appeal and emergency humanitarian action in Papua 2025 to humanitarian aid is closed by the government because the airport and transportation and economic have been controlled by the Indonesian military fully. C. Urgent appeal and emergency humanitarian action in Papua 2025. 1. On behalf of the Papuan people, we urge the United Nations Secretary General and the leaders of United Nations member states around the world to immediately carry out humanitarian intervention in West Papua to save the indigenous people, Papuan, from the crime of the Indonesian military. 2. We also urge the International Committee of the Red Cross to enter Papua to carry out a humanitarian mission because almost 100,000 plus indigenous Papuan civilians have fled to the forest and living without health insurance and food supply. In this case, we need to convey that this crisis is the same as in Gaza, Middle East, but there is no international attention. We also urge the United Nations Human Rights Commission and all human rights working groups around the world to urge the Indonesian government to intervene in humanitarian contact, transparent or open investigation into the crime of the Indonesian military who were killed indigenous Papuan civilian in Intan Jaya, Puncak Jaya, Nugama, Puncak Papua, Sorong My Brat, Yahukimo, Pegunungan Bintang, and other Papuan regions. 4. We ask all Papuan indigenous people and Indonesians who are concerned about the suffering of Papuan indigenous people to immediately urge the Indonesian government to open humanitarian access and independent investigation into the armed conflict area in Papua. This is an urgent appeal from the management of the West Papua National Defense Army headquarters, and thank you for your attention. Israel from the management of the TPNPP headquarters on May 21st, 2025. On behalf of High Commander General Kolyat Naman Tabuni, signed by Chief of General Staff Major General Triano Sato. Thank you.